and $50,000 fair market value. Your 2018 ad valorem tax $1,228, and the tentative budget puts that ad valorem tax at $1,276, or an increase to your monthly escrow of about $4.03. I had put together a scale that shows different fair market values, and I'll put that up at the end of the presentation so you can go home with something that's more meaningful for you. I'm sure you want to know, for every tax dollar you pay, where is that being spent? So this graph shows a comparison between how your tax dollar for 2019 is budgeted as compared to when it was 10 years ago. The rising cost of legacy benefits, there is less allocated to the public safety and transportation. These departments are still required to perform at the same level or at a greater level than they were 10 years ago. Additionally, you'll notice that the amount towards debt service is up 3 cents per tax dollar. But if you think about all the projects that the town has taken on over the past 10 years, including all our road resurfacing projects, our DEC consent order, any improvements we've made to our parks and playgrounds, and the community center that has a half-court gym for our youth, we're really getting a lot out of a little bit of change. There are a few different factors that we'll go into in a little greater depth, as there are some of the big factors of the 2019 budget. These include the level of fund balance we have available, our debt service commitments, the different services that we provide to the town, and required employee costs. As mentioned earlier, a way to offset the amount of appropriation is through your revenues and appropriated fund balance. This chart shows the level of revenues that we've received, including sales tax, any state and federal aid, mortgage tax, interest income, and other departmental incomes. They've raised about $2.5 million over the past 10 years. With this stagnant increase in revenues, another way to offset taxes is to use appropriated fund balance, or in other words, to use some of the town's savings. The main goal of the town's budget isn't to make money, it's to break even. Per the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA, nevertheless, the GFOA recommends that at minimum, an unrestricted fund balance of 2 months of operating expenditures be maintained. Further, the town has its own fund balance policy that has the same goal of 2 months of operating expenditures, but at minimum, 10% of the upcoming year's appropriations. As you can see by this chart, the town is currently under both the GFOA and the town's self-imposed minimum levels. So that means in the past, the town has been able to use appropriated fund balance to help soften the impact of appropriations. However, that's no longer an option. In July of 2017, our credit rating agency put us on a watch due to our low fund balance levels. To respond to that watch, the 2018 budget reduced the amount appropriated in the fund or in the general fund from $900,000 to $450,000, and in the highway fund from $450,000 to 0. The 2019 budget further responds to this by decreasing the amount appropriated in the general fund from $450,000 to $250,000. Short-term versus long-term debt. So in July 2018, the town converted all of its bond anticipation notes to bonds. A bond anticipation note is a short-term borrowing. This is something that has a maturity life of 1 year from the date of issuance. Due to its short life, it receives a better interest rate. Historically, we've had between 1.44 and 2.25% on our bands. However, you can only roll over your bands for so long based on the type of issuance that you made. In July, our municipal market advisors reached out to us and recommended due to the current state of the market, they thought that the feds were going to increase their rates 2 more times this year. So they recommended that we don't wait, that we convert our bands to bonds now. We did so, and we locked in a great rate of 3.28%. If we were to have waited just from July until now, we've been advised that we would get a rate more like 3.78% because the Feds did increase their interest. So that savings of 50 basis points is really a lot over the term of our bonds, which were for $32 million. So that increase in debt service that you're seeing this year, the main reason for that is because our interest is higher because we went from short-term to long-term. What's included in our outstanding bond payments? This is just a chart of the principal and interest payments that are in the budget for the general highway, sewer, and water funds. This debt has been issued anywhere from 2006 to present. And if you've been following along, you might know that we did recently bid out a refunding bond on our 2006 and 2010 bonds. That came in at 2.45% on the bonds that were originally at 3 and 3.8%. So that's going to save us about $107,000 in interest, or $14,000 in interest a year from now until 2025. That's not in these numbers, but it will be in the budget before it's adopted. So you'll see these numbers go down a little bit. Going back to the slide I showed earlier, how is your tax dollar budgeted? 12 cents of every tax dollar you pay goes towards debt service. Or on an average assessed home of $60,000, fair market value of $150,000, that's $147 a year that you're paying towards debt service. What makes up this annual $147 you're paying? $95.24 that you're paying goes towards roads, $25.43 goes to the community center library, or a little bit over $2 a month. $11.90 goes towards garbage totes, that's going to be falling off soon. $8.54 goes towards general equipment, and $6.74 goes towards the police headquarters, that's also going to be falling off soon. Three of our highest cost departments are the police department, our highway department, and our refuse department. However, we're very proud of the level of services these departments provide. In fact, thanks to our police department, we've been voted the safest community in Western New York multiple years. They also recently just renewed their accreditation from the New York State Department of Criminal Justice, which only a few towns achieved that. Our highway department offers bi-weekly brush pickup, free mulch and compost to the residents, curbside leaf pickup, and it cleans and maintains our flooding structures. Our sanitation provides weekly grass pickup through May and December, weekly large item pickup, and also pickup of everything outside of your totes, not just what's inside of it. Not all towns provide refuse and recycling. At 6.29% of your ad valorem tax, that's about $80.31 that you're paying a year for your garbage and recycling pickup. Over in the town of Hamburg, where they have to contract this out, each homeowner has to contract this out themselves. One resident in 2017 paid $90.50 for her garbage and recycling. So that's, you're saving a little over $10 a year for the town doing it, as opposed to it going out. Employee costs. We have settled union contracts with our white collar, blue collar, and police benevolent agencies through 12/31/2021, 12/31/2020, and 12/31/2020, respectively. These include contracted wage increases and also contributions towards health insurance. The cost to provide health insurance has increased over $2.8 million since 2010. We're part of the Labor Management Healthcare Fund, or LMHF. This is a coalition of different governmental entities that pull together to purchase health insurance as a group to get a better rate. The experts over at LMHF are constantly monitoring our performance and ensuring that we're receiving the best rate. In the past, we were funded at 92% of what they told us our max loss was going to be, so we were hoping that we would never get to where they thought we were going to be. But over the years, we've increased that to 98%, and as a result of being more fully funded, this year, while other towns may experience a high increase in their health insurance, we only have to increase ours by 3%. The retirement system. Every municipality in New York State is required to participate in the employee retirement system or the police and fire retirement system. The payments to those have almost doubled over the last 10 years. In fact, we've had to increase our budget by $968,000 just to pay for these mandated costs. In 2016, the town adopted its own local tax cap law that puts a limit on our increase in operating expenditures at 2%. Despite all the issues that we just discussed, the town has stayed and will continue to stay within its self-imposed appropriations cap. My information is also on the town's website under finance. If you would like to contact me directly with any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. Anyone from the public that has a comment, please come up to the microphone and make your comment.
Kim's Covington Drive. Mr. Hart, last year at this meeting in this room, you stated that you were in favor of a citizens budget committee. A year has passed, nothing has happened. How come?
This actually is part of the budget hearing, Dave. I can talk to you privately about that, but I just have not been able to put it together. And we're going to have to, as a town board, make that decision soon.
Do the other two members think we should have one?
Mr. Kims, if you wanted to comment about the budget hearing process, that's the questions, the comments we're looking for. But as far as the budget committee, this board has already stated at several town board meetings that we have no issues with that and we would embrace it.
Okay. After last year's increase, why would we still go with increases for non-mandated positions?
That's your comment, that you're not pleased with us making those salary increases of employees that are not mandated under a contract.
Yes.
Thank you.
Why would, oh, you don't give an answer, I just
No,
state.
you're just making a comment here, sir, at this budget hearing. Your comment is
Sounds like
taken.
you're unhappy about it.
Okay.
Anyone further?
Susan Kims, 99 Covington. It was my impression that we could ask questions at this particular meeting. I wanted to comment on the Birchfield, and so I've been looking through the budget to see anything appropriated for it. So I have to ask you, what is appropriate? We have a building sitting there that is going to ruins, and I'm not saying that we're even trying to maintain it to keep further damage being done.
That's correct, Mrs. Kims. I would have the legal department answer that. There was a reason why there was nothing put in that, and we are maintaining the Birchfield.
Mrs. Kims, typically with, when the town is facing litigation, we don't tend to show our hand as to what we're going to put into it, how much money we expect would be needed on the back end, what we're looking for out of the other parties. We've done this in the past with a lot of our tort cases as well. This is a tort case in itself.
We are responsible to keep further damage from happening.
And that's
we
correct.
cannot pursue damages that should have been.
That's correct. That is being taken care of. That is in the budget. There are no issues.
As a taxpayer, should I not be allowed to know how much you're putting of my money towards
That's
this?
the whole idea. We don't want everyone to know what we're thinking about what we're putting into the litigation.
But we are going to maintain the building?
Indeed, yes, that and pursuant to the litigation as well, the town has an affirmative duty to make sure that any of the losses ongoing are mitigated. We've been working with our outside counsel to do so. We've been working with our building department to do that. the town's been pretty vigilant with respect to that.
But there is, the general maintenance, would that be in your budget?
Yeah, it's included under the cultural center. That includes the Birchfield and the Flex Center.
I didn't see it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone further?
Hi, Gary Dixon, 543 Union Road. Following up on Mr. Kim's, I mean, I agree with him that if you simply look at the budget, there are a number of people who are receiving raises who are not, it's not contractually mandated. The supervisor doesn't get a raise, the councilmen don't get raises, but other elected officials are getting raises, and they did last year, and they seem to always do it. And while I understand that for the average house, it's not a lot of money, still, if you look at it, I mean, a penny saved is a penny earned. Just in the Buffalo News recently, there was a article about the town of Tonawanda that they limited their budget increase to 1%, and they did not give any raises to people that they were not contractually mandated to. There are several things in the budget that look very off. I mean, if you just compare what was in the tentative budget for last year and what is this year, we have for example, this is not to pick on anybody in particular, it's just the way the lines are divided up, so that's the only thing we have to compare. So, for example, the sanitation laborers, their salary line is going up almost 20%. Their contract has an increase of 2.75%. So that's like 16%. Now I understand there's step increases and things like that, but I can't believe that they go up that much. So I'm wondering why that went up almost 20%. The electrical maintenance men went up 20%. There's only 2 guys there. You know, not to pick on the chief, but the police chief and the deputy chiefs, their lines have gone up 4.5%. Yet their agreements or their contracts with the town is that they match what the PBA budget is, which should be 2.25%. So they're going up double what they should have gone at. If you go through the budget and you put the salary line increases at what is contractually required, and don't give increases to people that are not contractually required, you save about $200,000. And it's just curious that, I mean, particularly if Ms. Wink could talk about why, for example, the sanitation has gone up 20% in 1 year. Is that possible to get a?
The increase in sanitation was a contract, addition to their contract that was negotiated earlier in 2018.
There's a provision in their contract that says it goes up 20% in 1 year.
No, Gary, what it is, the sanitation department is a very young department. Their young employees generally are newest, and they all receive steps every year. So until they're past, I think, 7 years. And most of those gentlemen are under 7 years. So all 21 of them are probably getting some kind of step. I don't have it in front of me to look at it, but that's what I suspect it is.
Right, if you look at the excess, if you apply the...
Each year, they get...
I'm sorry.
Each year...
Go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
Each year, they get a step, plus they get the percent from...
I understand. However, if you look at how much what was in the 17 budget, and you apply the contractual increase of 2.75%, that still leaves an extra $113,000 that is kind of unaccounted for. And I don't believe the step increases add up to $100,000. The same, the electrical maintenance men are in the same position, and those guys are not young. Yet theirs went up 21%. So what is happening with our money? What?
Mr. Dixon, one thing that it might not answer your question entirely, but the 2017 budget, when it was adopted by the town board, didn't have the increases considered for the blue-collar employees at that time, meaning the sanitation wages. So that would give the effect of a greater delta between 2017 and 2018, just because those numbers were kept at par with the previous non-contract year, as we would with the Triborough Amendment, where we have to keep the contract in place as of the last day. That would be part of an explanation for that number increasing.
Well, and so this gets to the issue that I know that people who have attended these meetings far longer than I have made repeated requests that there be more detail in the budget. Especially the salary numbers should break out overtime. They should break out what their regular is. And if there's retirement benefit costs in there, they should be in there. Yet, year after year, we're faced with the same thing. So we don't know. We don't know what these numbers really include. For example, how much, so far in the year to date, how much overtime has been spent? Does anybody know how much overtime is? We're on track. How much are we on track to spend this year?
I can run that report and send it to you.
Because I looked at the budget that you have, so the budget numbers, the document I got earlier today, and this budget has over almost $800,000 in overtime, not counting the police. It's just amazing how much overtime we spend, and what kind of controls there are on it. I would think that some modest control over overtime could save us $100,000. Just take off 10%.
It's a possibility. I think I have to know what the actual numbers are this year and the actual numbers last year, make a comparison, and we'll take a look at it. But this is a budget. This is our best guess as to what the overtime is going to be. And I'm assuming that the overtime is based on, I know it's based on several years.
Well, I looked at
You also have to calculate it. You take the 25, they get time and a half, and then on Sundays they get double time. So all of those, we actually have worksheets that calculate that.
No, I understand that, and the town has been very good about providing salary numbers to the public when we do a FOIL. For example, in 2017, just to take, again, I'm not picking on sanitation, but there's not a lot of guys there, so I was able to do that quickly. In 2017, the average person in sanitation got $2,800, roughly, in overtime. In your budget, in this year's, that's 2017. This year, you've got $3,800, so you got over 50% increase in overtime for that.
Well, I would have to look at the number, but I could see that last year we were at the old contract rates up until October maybe, and then this year, of course, we're budgeting for a full year at the new rates. So I'd have to look and see the detail, but it's there.
Okay, just and one final thing. It would be awfully nice to have. Well, I guess you couldn't have the actual for 2018, obviously, but like the actual from 2017 or something.
We would have that to date.
Right, to date.
So we
then you can extrapolate. Because, it's unclear how much, we have the tentative. We have what was proposed in 2018, but it's not quite clear how much was actually, in 2017.
Yeah.
It's not quite clear how much was actually spent.
Actually, I didn't catch that.
No, like what, we know what was proposed in the
Right.
proposed budget in the last full year we have 2017. But we don't really know what was actually spent.
On overtime?
No, total, on everything, yeah. It would be useful in the budget documents to look at that.
Actually, we do have the actual spend. Just give me a second here.
Well, we don't.
If you look at the annual audit of the auditor,
Yeah, but it's not broken down by budget line. Is it by, is that online? I've seen the audits and those are not online.
I believe it
They're
is.
under the finance department.
Oh, okay, all right.
General fund, actual expenditures in the general fund, were $10,730,958.
Right, that's not except broken down by budget line?
And I'm just giving you the total.
Yeah, okay, all right.
And the budget lines are part of this report. There's a lot of detail in here. It's prepared by the annual audit.
So, again, not to pick on anybody, but the chief of police's salary is going up 4.5%. Why is that? It's not, there's no reason to do that. There's no, I mean, there's no contractual reason to do that.
I can't answer that either.
Yeah. I mean, if it was me, I would not, you know, I would not be giving raises if I did not have to give raises. And I would, you know, take a strong look at overtime and just require department heads to be a little, you know, stricter, cut it 10%. And that's, you know, $100,000. That's not peanuts. Thank you.
Speaking of the chief, in particular, he received the contracted 2.25%, and he also has longevity in 2019, so that's the reason for that.
So there's another longevity line for, what, 30 years? Or whatever the longevity period is. Thank you.
Anyone further? Okay.
Jeff McCarrick, 157 Delray. Hey, just a couple of comments here. After last year's increase of 8.63%, I was curious why the town hasn't done more to cut spending. I mean, avoid the raises for department heads, possibly lay off positions, you know, reduce the town workforce a little bit. Instead, we've actually added 2 spots in buildings and grounds. We've been messing around with the PR contract for about 6 months. Why have we done all that? Yeah, just a couple.
Most of our increase has to do with healthcare costs.
I agree with that. Okay. But why not try to reduce the workforce in the long run and decrease the healthcare costs? I mean, instead we've added spots in buildings and grounds this year. I mean, one of them is related to Sheila Meekins. Another is related to Mark Schroeder, the city controller. Why?
Jeff, it doesn't matter.
That's a fair argument. Why did we create them? The park and the buildings all existed last year.
We addressed that at town board meeting. We said back in 2004, first of all the departments have guaranteed numbers. They're all guaranteed through past upwards. So we maintain those numbers. We have to maintain those numbers. The buildings and grounds, that number was set at 14 back in 2004. Since that time, we answered that question multiple times at the board meeting. We have 17 parks now. We're going to add another park this year. We have over 35 buildings that 14 people maintain.
So taxes off. Families cut their budget to make ends meet. Businesses cut their budget to make ends meet. Why doesn't the town do the same setting with tax increase every single year? I mean, really.
Well, it's the costs that go with doing business. The workers' comp that has been mentioned tonight. We have 4 or 5. We just received another one today. I'm going to say 4 huge worker comp claims this year. So as far as the buildings and grounds, the numbers are guaranteed. We can't do anything about that. We can negotiate numbers, but they have to be negotiated out, and there'll be some kind of a trade-off. As far as anything else, I don't know how else to answer your question.
Okay. Let me ask you this, then. Why does the recreation director get a $9,000 raise in his budget? I mean, that's an awful big number.
There was an error in last year's budget.
Right. It was the number of last year's budget was recorded incorrectly.
That's going to be an error. Other question I asked him, why don't we look at things like bi-weekly
You know,
recycling?
one thing you got to remember is this is a budget. This is an estimate of what we think we're going to spend. You know, and there are mistakes made in budgets. And the recreation director was reported in error last year, less than it should have been. Now this year we've corrected in the budget, but it's just an estimate. What you really need to look at is what we've actually spent.
Jeff, as far as the recycling, if you were here last year, we have in our contract a price to go to bi-weekly recycling. It was overwhelmingly defeated. We were told through emails and phone calls, do not go to every second week recycling. We have a price for it.
Did you put up the public referendum? Because, I mean, you're talking about 20 emails. I mean, we had a big town here, 31,000.
Last year, the place was packed, and people said, do not go to
I was the same here, I didn't hear all that. I heard a lot of people asking for spending cuts, and the board just ignored it. There's no cut in positions, there's nothing.
We have a price in our contract to go to every 2-week recycling.
Let me ask you this, then. What if you try and reduce overtime costs? I mean, I heard Gary kind of a little bit, but I was just curious.
Well, overtime is based on a whole bunch of factors. We don't know when it's going to snow. We don't know when there's going to be a flood. We don't know when there's going to be some kind of an incident. And I have to go back a while back to Lexington Green when we spent $1 million, over $1 million. That wasn't budgeted for. That was all overtime. So if we knew what we were going to spend in overtime, we'd be able to budget better. But it's more of a history. We look at last year, the year before, and we try to maintain some sort of a resemblance.
If you're looking at year after year, isn't there a way to schedule smarter and whatnot? I mean, not everything is ruled directly in the union contracts, and there's some areas of leeway, there's other areas obviously you have to negotiate. I'll agree with you there. But I mean, it just seems like I said, everyone here, we see the costs spiraling out of control, we see our taxes skyrocketing every year. People are sick of it. That's basically my general point. Thank you.
Anyone further wish to make a comment?
I was waiting my turn just in case warmer people. We just talked about Lauren's wages. The increase was about $9,000. Do we know what her pay was supposed to be last year? Because apparently it was reported wrong.
Her 2018 salary is $49,269.87. She received her contracted raise of 2.5% plus a step.
When you say contracted rate, you're talking a union increase?
Yes.
So that would be a civil service designation that she has, and that's why she would receive that?
Yes.
Again, I know, because I don't really understand a lot of what was asked, but I do have questions, and please don't take this personally. On the police chief, the increase was $7,000, and that was strictly contractual then? Yes.
Yes.
And we also have raises for electrical inspectors from $48,000 to $87,000 for 2 men, and wondering why it is that we would.
That's because we had a contract with the town of Orchard Park to cover 40% of one of our electrical inspector's salary, but that contract has not been renewed for 2019. That increase is offset in the revenues, so it's budget neutral.
So we had 2 inspectors last year, which we shared with Orchard Park.
No. We only have 1 electrical inspector, and the contract with Orchard Park has been terminated. We only budgeted for half his salary, or whatever the contract called for last year. Now, we have to budget this year for the full salary. But we're anticipating that he'll be able to spend his time in West Seneca doing the inspections, and there's a fee for it, and that will offset his salary.
I was quoting from the budget where it said 2 electrical inspectors on line 1.3620.0106 on page A7.
Say that again.
1.32620.0106 is on page A7. And it shows an increase from 48,000 to 87,000, but it states two electricians.
So part of it is the expiration of that contract, and then there is an electrical inspector. It only says 1 on the page.
It's only 1. It's right here.
So we're paying one gentleman
You also
$87,000.
You're referring to
Page A7.
you're referring to the electricians as opposed to the electrical inspector. That's where the confusion is.
So I guess I'm still confused. The 87,000 is for 1 gentleman or 2?
It's for 1. This is Kim's. It's for
for one, it's for Steve Williamson. We shared him with the town of Orchard Park, and that's a civil service position, and we have since moved to have him full-time in West Seneca. We used to outsource all of our electrical inspections with Commonwealth, and the town was losing money. And by going ahead and hiring our own electrical inspector, the revenues from that are reflected on the revenue side, and it well exceeds the salary that we pay him and the inspections he completes.
But last year we shared him, and he had enough time to do the work for 2 towns, and now we have him just doing the work for 1 town, correct?
Well, that was his second year with the town of Orchard Park, and we found that there was so much development right here in West Seneca, and he was extremely busy right here in our town and in Orchard Park. So we felt that the best for the town of West Seneca is to keep him right here and to not further the contract with the town of Orchard Park. And we advised them in August that effective December 31st, he will no longer be doing inspections in the town of Orchard Park.
Sue, he also did some electrical inspections on Saturdays, Sundays of last year, so we're hoping to eliminate that. So they'll be able to work a standard regular work.
Also, the other issue was our clerk, we have one clerk in the department, was spending half of her time doing Orchard Park work with no reimbursement.
Would it be appropriate and okay for me to ask what we pay this gentleman per hour? I mean, is there an hourly rate, or is it just a annual salary?
Sue, it's an hourly rate based upon the steps set forth in the blue collar contract. Let me pull the contract real quick and I'll figure out what step he's on and what his group classification is.
Okay. So I'll go on to the next thing. Recreation, it listed under other employees part-time an increase of $57,000. The line for that was 0.0138. I'm wondering how many part-time employees were included in that $57,000 figure?
Do you want me to talk?
Well, it's really, you're asking how many part-times we have in total? That's
I mean, you're
seasonal,
but you're budgeting for $57,000, and I'm wondering, I
yes.
would think that you would have an idea of how
We
many
could give you a
people.
breakdown, Mrs. Kims, on what our costs are in the summer with our lifeguards and our recreation program, and then our winter programs. We can give you a breakdown on who's working and what the costs are.
No, I just wanted an overall figure of how many part-time employees we might be paying $57,000 to.
It depends on the season, and the season is reflective in the number of dollars that are being spent. But going back to the electrical inspector, just so you know, by leaving Orchard Park, we will be reducing overtime.
Sue, we're gonna open up the gym at the, in the CCL, the community center. That is now gonna be open for other events too, so those events will have to be staffed.
Okay.
And the increase in minimum wage from $10 up to $15 is also reflected in that budget line.
Mrs. Kim, sorry, that our white collar contract is broken down solely by salaries. It's our blue collar contract that's broken down into rates. But this gentleman is at a group 9, step 6, hired after 2011 with an annual salary of $72,608.
I had a question on the workers' comp, because we had touched on the workers' comp. I understand that the town is self-insured for workers' comp.
To a point. To a certain level of dollars, we retain that, what is it, $25,000?
The town is self-insured for workers' compensation claims up to $600,000. After $600,000, the town's excess workers' compensation policy kicks in.
And this year, we have been advised of 5 claims that we have to pay out of the awards, and they're old claims. They're from years ago, so it just hit this budget, and it's pretty high cost.
So we are self-insured in our own group, or are we part of a larger self-insured group?
It's self-insurance to the extent of the town pool itself, so it'll only be our workers. It's not a consortium like we are with the LMHF. And one of the reasons why these awards are coming up now is there's different types of awards you can get under workers' compensation. You can get awarded for your time out, or you can get a scheduled loss of use injury. What the town is experiencing is our workforce is aging, is an enhanced number of scheduled loss of use injuries, which typically result in lump sum payments that the town is aggressively negotiating. And on top of that, the town board has worked with our third-party workers' compensation claims administrator for a health and safety welfare committee that is working to recognize the scheduled loss of use injuries and ways to prevent them going forward.
As I understand it, if we have an employee that is injured, say he cuts off his left arm, there's a dollar figure that's assigned to that left arm.
Crazily enough, cutting off a left arm is a whole different ballpark. Let's say he broke his left arm. Okay. So breaking his left arm, there's actuarial tables that the Workers' Compensation Board of the State of New York, when they're setting their awards for these injuries, they hunt, they peck, they find the actuarial table, they compare that to the examination of the doctor for the claimant, the independent medical examination, and from there they make a determination as to the amount of the award within the goalposts provided from the testimony and facts at hand.
It's been a few years since I worked in insurance. There used to be a listing for a hand it was this much,
Yes.
for an arm it was that much. So, and at the time that the loss happens, say you have an employee that lost the left arm, but is still working, you are responsible to set aside X amount of dollars for that left arm, am I correct?
Yes, but these gentlemen, it's not a one-time injury where it happens, where an arm is broken, an arm is truncated. These are gradual over time injuries. So these gentlemen, they'll be later on in their career, they'll go to the doctor, they'll say, "Doc, this is hurting." Then the issue becomes, for the attorneys, our attorney says, of course, that injury wasn't caused by the work. Their attorney says, of course, the injury was caused by the work, so there's a determination, it's an ANCR determination that the injury is actually related to the work. So it's not that the town board can go ahead and say, there was an incident on this day, we need to observe the actuarial table laws to get the right amount in there. We did have an incident like that, that was a catastrophic injury, that we were able to look at it and say, this is the breadth of this economic damage to the town, and we've taken the responsible efforts to work with that. But a gentleman that's been doing a repetitive motion throughout his entire career, one, we don't know if, when that is happening, because we can't go in and make these guys take physicals on a daily basis. It's about them reporting it. And two, because it is that gradual use, you will see these guys report it when it hurts, and that's not something that the board can control at that point or plan for even at that point.
So anything that we would be paying out now would be something that was not an old claim where we should have set aside the money and now it's coming to fruition.
Sue, a lot of those claims are older claims. We entered into an agreement this year with a new administrator. Our goal with them is to close out some of these old, outstanding worker comp cases that have been out there for a while. So we want them to aggressively go after these worker comp claims and close them out so they don't sit there forever and ever and hurt the next board down the road, the one after. But we are trying to close out as many workers comp as we can.
So I guess what I was trying to get at, and because I do understand that, I used to do that for a living. So what I'm wondering is maybe with workers' comp, maybe it's part of a larger program, so we could spread that.
That exists, a consortium. I don't know of a consortium that exists for workers' compensation claims. The Labor Management and Healthcare Fund exists. A big part of what the workers' comp claims are based upon is the separate classification of workers. So, I don't know of anything out there that would benefit the town to that extent.
So I guess I'm asking because I don't know the public sector, but I know that in the private sector, there are safety groups that are set up for just that sort of thing. So I guess I'm asking if that's available to the town to help us with the cost.
I mean, that I can look into it, I don't know of any public consortium for workers' compensation. And that we've spoken with our insurance carriers multiple times about whether we're appropriately set up with the size of our blue-collar workforce, having an excess policy, having a self-insured retention, so.
I would thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Just side note, Mrs. Kim, the town of West Seneca does have a safety committee, so, and that's been in play for a number of years. Thank you so much. Anyone further?
Rudy Russo. I have a lot of questions, but I guess we're not having a question and answer period, so I'll just make a couple of comments. This goes back to a couple of years ago. You might remember the meeting, I said the most important thing coming up was these 3 contracts. We had coming up with white collar, blue collar police. More important than that ridiculous building, we put the community center, half a gym, whatever it is. And we failed. This board, you failed miserably on the contracts. The salaries and benefits in this town are great. And I'm not against people making peanuts. You look at the salaries, I don't think the salaries in this town are unbelievable. For the skills, for their education, people are making a ton of money in this town. Overtime is outrageous. No one on the board, you guys have been out of years, nobody's done anything to try to do something with the overtime. Overtime is just like turn the water faucet on and let it run. I know we can't predict the storm, we can't predict this, but there's a lot of overtime. You mentioned buildings and grounds, you just hired 2 more people. You mentioned the cost. We don't need any more employees in this town, but you had to hire, and everybody, we all know, there's political cronies. You got to hire your cronies, and they got these nice jobs. We didn't need 2 more people. I was told to clean that building next door, the new building. That's half the building. We don't clean the library, do we? I don't think we clean the library. So you put 2 people on to clean a half the building. Now, you mentioned 14. I think I counted 20 people full-time buildings and grounds. How many people you got part-time? You got a ton of people part-time. You're going to tell the public that part-time workers can't go in there at night and clean that half a building? You had to hire 2 more people full-time. And the company, probably about next year, those 2 employees are going to cost $200,000. By the time their salaries and their benefits, talk about health care retirement going up. What causes that? You keep on hiring people, retirement benefits go up, and I know why the retirement is going up because I'm sure Mr. Hart, you're the pension plan, you probably got a new letter from the controller of New York State. Best pension system, $290 billion they got. They got more money than God. But yet, does anybody contact the state and say, hey, we need a break on a pension, a retirement, but they sock it to us. The other thing I'd like to mention, I see this every year. I've asked for this for I don't know how many years. How about an itemization? We don't get it. And your recreation charges, you got $400,000 last year, you got $400,000 for 2019. You just, and probably out of all the towns here, they're all about the same. You just plug in the same numbers. Why can't we see something in recreation, for example, just use that? We can't see the breakdown, how much the swimming pool takes in, how much it goes, how much we pay for chemicals, how much we pay for labor, and you get a figure. Ice rink. We can't get a figure on the ice rink, how much we get in revenue for ice time, the cost. I know a couple years ago I asked about the utilities. They said, utilities are hooked up with the town hall, and we don't know how much we pay in electric, we don't know how much we pay in water, gas for an ice rink. But I don't see any public skating, how much we taking for public skating, how much you taking for ice cream. Then we can see and how much labor, because you got a couple of people that are over there all the time from the station. And Mr. Walsh is our recreation director. I asked him about the hockey program. The high schools are practicing early in the morning. Someone's got to come over and open this rink up. Now, if they get overtime, who's paying for the overtime? He told me the federation is paying, which I kind of thought that was he didn't know. He says, go ask the town board. So who's paying all that overtime when someone's got to come open up their rink at 5:30 in the morning? See, things like this, the baseball fields. I remember, Mr. Hanley, I asked you about that softball tournament over at Sunshine Park. They came in for a whole week. You had 8 pages, and I said, well, how much are they paying to use our facilities? Nobody knew. It wasn't in that contract. So how much did we collect in rent? Because probably the guys probably had a ton of overtime in the softball tournament that lasted a week. We probably gave out a ton of overtime. Just like I mentioned every year at the soccer park, the Odenbach tournament, and it's about time to tell the Odenbach people to go someplace else. We lose money in that tournament, no matter, you can spend it any way you want. They make money on their fundraising, they walk out with a ton of money. By the time we got the paying for using the field, the overtime, the supplies, the police, we lose money. One year I did a FOIL, and I got all the figures. We lost money, because you get the overtime, it's unbelievable you got the overtime. Speaking of overtime, I know you plug in, but I know the salary crew chief, the salary was $69,000, and you got $49,000 plugged in for overtime. See, this goes back to the contracts. These are positions, they should be salary positions. People supervising other union members getting overtime. That would never happen in the private sector. I can tell you that because I've been on both sides of the fence. I worked in the union for years, I worked in management. You cannot supervise union members if you're a union member. Private sector would never have it, but yet we have it here. It's just, you got to make changes somewhere else along the line. And it goes back to the contracts. This board, you failed miserably on these 3 contracts, and we're stuck. If you would have fought for the taxpayers and held the line. Other towns, I've seen contracts, 1 or 2 years, they get no raises. They hold the line for a couple of years, just to get your fund balance up, get some money, give the taxpayers a break. Not in my Seneca. And believe me, if you look at the salaries in this town, somebody not getting a raise in 1 year, they're not going to go in, they're not going to sign food stamps. They're not going to go down and try to get their heat. They need heating assistance in the wintertime. Because again, you look at the salaries, everybody's making a ton of money in this town. Getting back to the garbage, you mentioned West Seneca, $90. Well, I can tell you, I got a lot of people in here. They might pay $90 to get the total. They contract with three companies. You have your choice of the total one. So maybe $90 might have been a big total. But that's all they pay. You look at it in the Hamburg town budget, you're not going to see a line that says sanitation employees with salaries, benefits, health insurance, workers' comp, Social Security. They don't have that in their line. So you might pay $90. I think you said we pay $80. But West Seneca, you can break it down and say, okay, we pay $80 for our sanitation for a total, or whatever you want to break it down. But are you including the salaries, the benefits, that $80 to school and everything? I find that hard to believe. You got all these employees with all the benefits, salaries, and that doesn't sound right. But you come up with the figures, you're a CPA, right? You must have the figures. That does not sound right. But again, I'd like to see a more itemized budget. I mean, I don't know if Mr. Hart and Mr. Hanley, is this the budget you get that we have? If this is a budget, how can you vote on a budget if you don't see any figures? How come the other person can see it? You look at this and you go, it's a waste of time. This doesn't tell us anything. But again, it goes back to, you keep on hiring. You say health insurance and retirement is causing a lot, that's the problem, that's part of the problem. Well, you keep on hiring, and every time you hire somebody, you put us in the bind. We didn't need a full-time recreation director. We were fine having a part-time recreation director and a couple extra hours in the summer to run the daycare if they came back. We didn't need that. You need 2 more people. Bloomsbury Nights, you hired 2 more people to clean the half the building, as they say. And then this last thing with Mr. Gullo, talk about making a mess. You people made a mess. You're going to give him health insurance for 12 years on our back. You gave him $25,000. You committed it for him. If that was anybody else, if that was me, I would have been arrested. He committed a crime and they let him off the hook, and then this dummy village of these Orchard Apartments, I thought I had little brains. That woman hired him. But she probably hired him because he doesn't need health insurance. So if he gets basic health insurance, what, $17,000 a year, you put the taxpayers on the line for the next 12 years of paying you the $17,000 in a single plan, and that's without any raises going up and health insurance will go up. So another poor decision on your part. Poor decision is E-Trade that you're finding $30,000 a year to have the PR. You've made one, this board, it's amazing the blunders you make. I never thought it could get this bad. I've been around for a while. Paul Clark and his crew For 16 years, it was a mess. And I thought every time we get something important, I hold a little hope saying, things are gonna change. This is the worst I've seen. You made a mess of everything. You keep on hiring, costs go up. You don't control overtime, you don't control anything. And then you come to people and say, well, we have mandated costs. Out of this budget, I came in late. How much of this budget is mandated? Can you figure that? How much of this budget is mandated with contracts? How much is contractually obligated out of this whole budget? You have a percentage or?
I don't have that.
Okay. So we don't have that much to worry about it, but it goes back to the contracts. And the three of you blew it. You blew it the last 2 years with these contracts because you could have fought for the taxpayers and said, let's hold the line now. And we always think about give and take. Where's the give and take? Where's the public unions? They got everything they wanted. They got everything they wanted, and I guess you patted yourselves on the back and said, oh, we got to pay $20 a year for your health insurance. You still get health insurance. People retire, they get free health insurance. They still get cosmetic rider and their health insurance. As a taxpayer, I'm sorry, I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. I don't think I should pay for somebody getting Botox, liposuction, tummy tucks, boob jobs, ass jobs. We shouldn't have to pay for that. I didn't fix the contract negotiations. Why don't you try to get rid of this? You didn't do it because these are all your buddies. You keep on hiring your friends and your family and say, oh, we can't fight for you. We don't care about the taxpayers. And this Gullo, this is a disgrace what the three of you did with Gullo. A total disgrace.
Anyone further?
I'm gonna make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
I have one question.
Oh, sure. Other question?
John, question. I'm not sure we heard the rest, I'm not sure we heard everything that the public wants to say, so I'd like to amend that motion to close, that we leave the public speaking section open for written comments. So anybody that wants to do written comments up until the close of business, Monday, the 22nd, does that work? So I'll amend the motion to close the public hearing, that we leave the written period open until Monday, October 22nd. Anybody wants to submit a comment, you do so by sending it to the town clerk. She will make sure that all of us gets that message.
I will second the motion as amended.
Thank you. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you everyone for coming.